Welcome back to the Biz Alchemy podcast. I am very excited to have a guest for you today. It's been a long time since I've had a guest on the podcast. In this episode, I share an inspirational conversation with my word buddy, Claudia Gross. Now, you know I love words. I've done an episode on the Yang language of business. The last episode, number 129, was about speak less, say more. Now, apparently, this is something to do with the fact that my Venus is in Gemini, which means I have a love of words, a love of expression. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. But I tell you what, I loved hearing Claudia's wisdom and celebration of words so much. Like, it was a feast for my ears. Anyway, Claudia describes herself as a soulful business humanist, consultant, and trainer. She's the founder of human-centered organizational governance, for which she curates the Life at Work weekly newsletter. And of most relevance to our conversation today, Claudia is the initiator of speakGreen, which offers intentional, life-affirming language for the future. And she's written an amazing book, Words Create Worlds, Cultivating a Conscious, Life-Affirming Language. After listening to our conversation, I guarantee you'll be mindful and heartful of every word you utilize in your life and business. Enjoy this wordsmithery with Claudia. Claudia, what changes have you made to move your business away from a patriarchal business model into a new earth business?
You see, my whole business actually is about these kind of changes or shifts or transformations. So I'm not a business as usual consultant. I'm actually a business as unusual consultant. And this, until this becomes then the new normal, whatever this is going then to be. And you see, for me, when I'm thinking about work, I want to strengthen humanity at work. And I do this with everything I do. Like, to give you 3 examples regarding my business, I'm supporting teams in moving from the idea of organizations as machines and all this mechanistic military language to organizations as living beings or organisms. Yeah. So that's one of the shifts that is actually part of my work. Or I am, since over 5-6 years now, publishing the Life at Work newsletter, where I'm sharing information about pioneering organizations doing this kind of shift, because I think it's important to expand our imagination of what is possible. And I'm also the initiator of speakGreen, where it's about promoting a conscious, life-affirming language. And everything there is also about the shift of how we are used to say it, what we are normally saying, and how we can express ourselves according to our consciousness in harmony with life and with how we now see the world. And this is, of course, an evolution.
Wow. Yeah. So basically, what I would call a new earth business, as you say, you have been following that path without using that terminology, obviously, but that's what's driven you. Has it always been that way? You know, when you were doing your consultant work, like what was the pivotal moment, or what was there a moment when you suddenly went, hang on, this isn't working?
Yes, I had this moment. You see, I was trained in the university in Frankfurt, and I started even as a student working for the professor for work and organizational psychology. And then later, I was lucky to get a scientific assistant position in his department, where I did my PhD on social conflicts and bullying at the workplace. And at this time, I was very much trained in the way we used to support organizations. What is academia saying about it? And also keeping in mind that my professor at this time, he went from school to university, and this is where he stayed. He's consulting organizations, and he never worked in one. And for me, then, when I finalized my PhD, when I had the chance to come to Egypt to work here in collaboration with offices in what they would call a region in Morocco, Afghanistan, Syria, Lebanon, I discovered the things that I have learned and that I was teaching in uni actually do not work as intended. They have a lot of negative side effects. For example, what they call as an annual staff assessment talk. I mean, the whole term is already like really critical. I mean, who wants to be annually assessed? And even if you want to tweak it, yeah, and change the wordings of it, and there are many ways of how to change the whole process. But what I've seen is that the way we used to do things is not working. And this was the moment when I actually stopped consulting teams. I stopped organizational development, coachings, and I sat still for 3 or 4 years. And in this time, I was reading the book Maverick by Ricardo Semler. He does work totally different in Brazil. I read Stewardship by Peter Bock or Peter Block. And later then I read Reinventing Organizations by Frederic Laloux. And all of this was like, oh, they are talking my language. They are speaking about what the changes that I feel need to be done. And it was so reconfirming. And out of this kind of liminal space or cocooning me and my books, I then came out and really like spread my wings. It was like, okay, here I am. I'm going to be your business as unusual consultant and support everyone who calls me or emails me and is like, Claudia, we heard you do things differently. And I'm, yes, I do.
I mean, in that way, you automatically began to attract in people who were looking for a difference.
Exactly. They heard about me because I was consulting friends and their teams and organizations, and they kept on speaking about how different my approaches are and how well they feel seen and how they feel in the whole process. And so, what we actually did there was like really working with new earth approaches. We just didn't call it like this. And the whole spirit, it was really, you remember there was a time when the people found it difficult to even speak about organizational culture. They were like, why should organizations have a culture? We speak about team spirit, that's possible, but I am waiting for the moment where we speak about organizational spirit. And I believe with your business energy readings, this is exactly going in this direction. I keep on recommending you to the CEOs I'm working with because I'm like, please get a reading, get some like more profound information than your business scorecard.
Thank you for that. So, over the years you've been doing that, is there more of a thirst for that now in organizations? Because I'm sure a lot of our listeners, even though they're entrepreneurs, but I'm sure many of them have come from an organizational background in that way. So are you noticing a change? Because that's of it. That I think is what spits many people out to go, I have to create my own business because it feels like you're against this system that's just not expanding in the way you're personally expanding.
Yes, absolutely. I see many people suffering because of the work or the way they are organizing or doing business. I always thought we should write an article or a book about work as a sickness or a disease because it's causing a lot of not just sleepless nights or back pain, it's really even leading to suicide. I mean, these conditions are unbearable and they're not made for us. We are human beings. We are not human parts of a machine. We are participants, we are active. So it's this matters to me, and it is also strongly resonating with everyone I speak with. They currently feel that the way we used to see them, speaking about whatever, a pipeline of candidates, treating them like cogs in a machine, re-engineering processes. Also, when you think about subordinates and supervisors, this kind of hierarchical language, people feel that this is not in harmony anymore with how they see the world and also how they perceive other circles they are in, be it in their community, be it online in circles, be it in their family. It's a totally different way of coming together. And I now see that people are more and more seeking for new social techniques, approaches, social technologies to support them in this quest. And there are many, many possibilities to support them in working with each other in a 100% human way, not just humanizing, like sanitizing or something. So I see that more and more people are waking up to this. And I think also when you think about the great resignation that we witnessed a couple of years ago, was proof of it, that people were like quitting their workplaces. They were like, we are not coming back. We do our own thing. You are not going to enforce anything on me. I am out. And now we need to support those who are out in filling this kind of void, because many people know what they do not want, but they find it difficult to imagine or then to go in the direction of what they really want and how to fill this with life.
Yes. And I suppose many people who find my work or my podcast, they're at that point as well. Because within that, there is a part of them, they know what they don't want because they're tuning into themselves as well. And they're just like, this doesn't feel in alignment. Even though other people are doing it this way, it's not in alignment for me. So you had your consultancy work, and then from that, you've also created Life at Work and speakGreen. So is it because of what you just spoke about? Is that what led you into those as well? Or was there something else that prompted the creation of those?
At the beginning, they looked independent of it. And for speakGreen, I started it 10 years ago, where I was sitting in the traffic jam here in Egypt, and we have many traffic jams, but this was a particularly bad one. I was sitting there and I was like surrounded by a lot of signs and information and infos, like don't be late, don't cross here, don't do this, don't seize this opportunity, whatever. And I was sitting there in my car and I thought, can you please all stop speaking in red language to me? Can you stop telling me what not to do? And this was the moment where I thought, like, okay, what would you prefer? What are the messages? Like, okay, take your time. I'm waiting for you. Turn over here. Yeah, seize the opportunity. All these things. And so this was the moment when speakGreen was born. And then I collected words, word couples, red and green ones, expressions. And then it was like this magic dough that grew out of the pot, out of the kitchen, out of the house, and was just going down the hill, where I thought, like, I need to share my insights. And this was the moment when I then developed whiteboard animations. I wrote articles. I gave my TEDx talk, because I felt and still feel until today the urge of sharing my insights. And once I started seeing the bigger picture, then also regarding like business at work, language at work, I realized that, for example, there's these what I call 7 M's, like military language, master language, money language, machine language, and so on. So it started very innocently, and then suddenly it's now differentiating. And now I have piles of words related to women, to diversity in general, health and healing, peace. So it's now diversifying, and it's really an interesting journey that I enjoy.
Yeah, I love that. I know I love following the journey. And so I'm interested, Claudia, around that because obviously it's entrepreneurs listening to this. So in the entrepreneurial world, because you're part of that, what words really stand out for you that you hear used, words or phrases that are the red ones, and what green ones would you offer? Can you think of any examples off the top of your head?
Yeah, just recently I've seen a conversation where someone was saying that she's not calling herself anymore self-employed, because she prefers speaking about herself as a business owner. And I thought, this is a really cool one. That's an immediate promotion or upgrade, right? I mean, like self-promotion. And when I kept on thinking about this, because freelancing sounds nice, but a freelancer is also actually a military term. So do I want to call me, am I fighting all the time? I am not interested in this. And what I found really interesting was when someone said, I'm an independent consultant. I thought, like, oh yeah, the direction of freedom, life, love, this is where I want to go to. So these are like alternatives. Or what you also said in the podcast many moons ago about marketing language is also relevant for us as entrepreneurs. And do I want to convert hot or cold traffic and send them down a funnel, or let them fall over a tripwire, these kind of things? No, of course not. So there's so much terminology that we consider that's the way we say it, that actually we need to look at and tune in and see if there's other words that we prefer to replace them with. And my all-time favorite is deadline. I mean, like, I could do a campaign, a global campaign, just for replacing deadlines with something that is more life enhancing.
Even the military language, when you said that, there are so many words, aren't there? What for you in that has really stood out?
Military language. I mean, I understand that organizational development has one of its roots in the setup of military, because it was one of the first organizations, also church and railways. But I mean, let's focus on the military. But now everything is military. So when you look at this, any job title ends on officer, or people are a general director. People have their field offices, like in different countries, and they have their head office in Europe or somewhere else. They have a front desk officer. Like it's the front and an officer, both of them in a word. And also, I mean, like strategy is a military term, target is a military term. So there is a couple of things, where we really need to find positive life affirming replacements for it, simply because they are sending out a different frequency and they are more in harmony with how we want to be in this world and how we want the world to be like. And therefore, yeah, it's really an invitation for all of us. And I am making offerings in this regard. I offer alternatives, green alternatives.
I just love that. It's expansive language, isn't it? As well, like
Mm-hmm.
even as you say that the alternatives, I feel more expansive, which I guess is because of the higher frequency of the language. So this must impact you a lot on your everyday language,
Yes, it does.
where you're just consciously aware and you'll use a word because that's commonly used, and then just pick up on it and self-correct.
Absolutely. I mean, it starts with these things like here in Egypt, a common expression, and supposedly also in other languages, is to say, I love you to death. And I'm like, please don't. I mean, I love my life. I love being alive at this period or this era on this beautiful planet. Do love me to whatever, life or anything else, but not to death. So this is just one example. And also when I'm drafting emails, when I'm drafting texts, when I'm sending whatever suggestions or feedback also to proposals by clients, I keep on, again, that's more like pebbles, like turning around language. Like, do we really want to focus on decreasing unemployment of youth? No. I mean, that's a double negation. We want to focus on increasing employment or employability of youth, if this is what we want. Yeah. So I am turning it constantly around, and I'm encouraging people to do this as well. And yeah, I see it in my day-to-day life everywhere, that there are changes in language. And I also have appreciation for those who take language to another level, where I see that, wow, they were really conscious about it. They were really thinking about it. I can feel it immediately, and I think every one of us does.
The last podcast episode I did, I called it Speak Less, Say More. Does that feel like it fits in with what you're talking about in speakGreen?
Yeah,
Is that economy of words, almost like there's more power in some words and they can say so much more, whereas a lot of our language can be just filler words.
absolutely. Yes, I think that using green words, words that are supporting life and freedom and self-organization and love, they are like zip files. So you can actually say less and use like less of these words, and their radiation is a lot bigger. Yeah. So therefore, I mean, I would go in this direction. The thing is, since we are currently in a transition period, sometimes I need to say both, because sometimes my green language sounds too poetic. So people think I have forgotten the negative part, or I wasn't aware that there's another way of saying it. And I'm like, no, no. And then I need to explain that I'm starting here and I'm now saying it like this. So it's actually already explaining or expressing the transformation until the day when, or until I'm in a community with people where I can actually speak green language a lot more than building this bridge or explaining the transformation.
Yes, that makes so much sense, because otherwise it's almost like it would go over the top of their head, because when something's completely new, it takes repetition, doesn't it, to actually understand it. So by actually bringing in the original term, the way it would have been, the red language, and then replacing it, yeah, that makes much more sense. Now, another thing that just popped into my head I'd be interested for you to share is, do you only do this in English? Because obviously English isn't your first language.
Yes, I mean, that's one of these big surprises in life, right? I mean, like, I am German, so German is my mother tongue, although my mother is Polish. So actually, it would be Polish, but I don't speak it. Yeah, but that's how we call it. So German is my mother tongue. And my first foreign language is French, not English. Started learning English later than when I was 11 or 12, and I didn't like it. And I recall when I came to Egypt, I thought, I hope people won't find out that I'm actually not that strong in English. And then, of course, I mean, after a while, I mean, I'm now dreaming in English, and I'm like having this kind of mix of many languages. So when I speak with friends here, it will be a mix of German, English, a bit of Arabic, so really mixed. And what I believe is that me being native German, listening with elephant ears to English language, led to speakGreen, because I am looking at these words and I'm like, really? What do you mean with this? Yeah. And like a point of view. Point of view is really the point where you are sitting or standing, and from there you are seeing the world and you're having a certain angle or perspective. I have a different point of view simply because I'm not standing on top of your feet. I'm standing where or sitting where I stand or sit. And the fun part of this is it's exactly the same word in German or also in French, but I didn't listen in a literal way or word by word way to it when I spoke German. So I needed a little bit of distance to look at it and then to be like, oh, this is how it is. Interesting. So some things also for my book, I mean, we want to translate it now to Spanish, it will be translated to Arabic, it will be translated to German, so my mother can also read it. And the thing is, I'm not sure if the whole book can be translated. So we need to work with explanations in brackets, because some of these phenomena that I'm speaking about, they actually only work in English. So I have to find a way around them.
Wow, that's a big job.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thankfully that I have support for this, it's really super interesting, and it makes again people also reflect on their language.
So share a little bit about your book.
The book is called Words Create Worlds, Cultivating a Conscious Life-Affirming Language. And the idea behind it was that I wanted to bring everything that I know about communication and the power of language together in one book. So it's actually a collection of the work I did for speakGreen. It consists of a couple of one-pagers regarding moving from something like don't shoot yourself, like about the word should that you also speak about a lot, or the language we use regarding refugees. There could be other terms, also the one-pager on deadline. There are some bigger chapters on language related to children. How do we speak about children? Like whatever, you're running fast for a girl. I mean, why are we still saying these kind of things? Yeah. Or boys will be boys. Excuse me, no, we are going to hold them responsible. So all of this is in the book. There's a chapter on coaching language. And and I also, in the beginning, I speak about the transformative power of language. And at the end, they are both like two chapters. They are like bookends in my book. The last chapter is on the power of language and neuroplasticity, and how the language we choose has an effect on ourselves and on the people we are dealing with on a daily basis, and our communities, and ultimately the world. And this is why the title is Words Create Worlds, because I believe we can transform the world by the words we choose. It's not the words we use, it's the words we choose. It's a conscious process. We are co-authors, and this is what the book is about.
I love that. And in fact, in many ways, that's what I see about the creation of New Earth, which is this higher vibrational frequency. It is a conscious choice. And the words, of course, words create our reality. And as we become more conscious of the words we use, that translates to the thoughts that we have.
Yeah, and this translates to the actions we do. And so it is actually like really super powerful. And when you just think about the thoughts we have or the self-talk we have inside of ourselves, it is really important. And sometimes when we witness how other people think about themselves or talk about themselves, it's something where I really wish people would speak with themselves in a more peaceful, more loving, more greener way. And then all of this is rippling out, and the power of language, also when you think about meditations, they are based on the power of language. Prayers, power of language. And therefore I believe it's really important to be aware of the power we have, that we don't need to say things the way we used to say them. We can choose them because they had an evolution themselves over the periods. They do not stay the same, and therefore if we can change words, we can change our lives, we can change the way we work, and everything. And that's really extremely powerful. Once people wake up to the power they have, like in their minds and on their tongue or in their hands or however they are writing, this is like a game changer. And as a friend of mine says, it's a micro intervention, because if you change one word, you don't know where you're going to end up. It could be like, it looks like a minimal shift and it leads you to a totally different destination.
Yes, I love that. So true. And I feel like, especially, entrepreneurs being in their own business, they have the opportunity to do that in a way, in an organization, it's slower, isn't it? It's a slow turning of the ship around. But if you've got all of these businesses that of people who can make that choice in their business, in the way they're communicating, in their podcasts, in their YouTube videos, in their Facebook posts, they can be making these shifts. And of course, that is going to impact those larger organizations, isn't it? That's going to carry over as well.
Yeah, we are many. Many are waking up currently to this, and they are changing the words, and they're becoming co-authors of reality. And they are going back to their families and their communities and their organizations, and they are telling them that's not the way we say it anymore. Yeah. For example, I once have been asked if I could facilitate a workshop on problem solving. And I said, you know what? Problem solving is not on my menu. What I can offer to you is a workshop on solution finding. And now the next iteration for this one is co-creating solutions, because many of them, we cannot find them. They're not lying around. We need, like, it's a complex experience we have on this planet. And for complex challenges, we need a co-creative processes. And therefore, this is also changing everything. The moment we are aware of co-creation, yeah, or as I now did, I'm not speaking about problems anymore. For me, it's challenges, it's lessons learned, it's invitations to develop myself further, these kind of things. And I believe we are really many, and all of us are powerfully contributing to that movement.
Yes. Oh, you're so inspiring, Claudia. I just feel awake and alive just hearing you speak. Plus, I do have a little passion for words, so that helps. So, how can listeners learn more about you and your work?
For example, by watching my TEDx talk, and also, of course, reading the speakGreen book. They can like speakGreen on Facebook and on Instagram, where they get a daily dose of inspiration regarding words. And this year they are thematic. So the first month was about self development. The second month is about love, inspired by Valentine's Day. And March is about women, because it's the International Women's Day on the 8th of March. So this is giving the theme. And April will be about health. And the rest you will discover once you listen to it. But it's going to be like thematic posts to create more of an impact. So this is how everyone can find me. And for Life at Work and pioneering organizations and how we collaborate differently to co-create human workplaces and working environments, people can subscribe to my newsletter and also receive a weekly dose of impulses, information, inspiration throughout the whole year. And there, very soon, I will also offer courses and webinars. The free webinars are already offered, but now I'm also going deeper into the matter. It will be a lot of fun.
Great. Okay. Well, I'll pop those links with the show notes. So, do you have a final message or anything you'd like to share with our listeners to complete our chat?
Yes, by creating awareness, by cultivating a new language, and by co-authoring the future, we all have the power to change the world day by day and word for word.
I love that so much. Thank you for joining us on the Biz Alchemy podcast.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It actually always has been a dream of me to be a guest, and I mean, like, now this thing came true, like what started with some words in my mind. Now it happened.
There you go. What a perfect way to finish. Thanks, Claudia.